Okay, so we are continuing our history lesson on the Eastern European countries. And I did want you to watch the two videos on Russia, which kind of explained a little bit more of what I explained yesterday, but a little bit better than what I did, on how Russia has continued to fight with this Communist Party. Okay? So, kind of where we left off yesterday was that we're about in the 1950s and 60s. We did talk a little bit farther into that, but I'm going to go back to this part. And during this time, this is when the Soviet troops were brutally putting down other Eastern European countries and trying to take over those countries that were trying to establish freedom, right? And so we see that in that two videos on how fighting just back and forth over those different countries around Russia was Poland. And Poland had been suffering so much from food shortages, and just their living conditions were very poor, that a shipyard worker named Lech Walesa organized a group of people, many different groups, called the Solidarity, to call for freedom elections and restore the Polish freedom. Okay, now the whole world ended up watching this because this was a big threat to Russia, because they actually, Poland, wanted to threaten to shut down factories, shut down farms, and anything that they were doing that was contributing to goods to the Communist Party, because they were being treated so poorly and they wanted to have more freedoms. Now, Russia decided at that moment, oh, wait, we can't have them not contributing to the Communist Party. So they went ahead and allowed Poland to be sent a whole bunch of food from Russia to basically kind of shut them up a little bit and tell them, hey, don't fight us. We'll give you all this food. But then the people in Russia were eating worse than the people in Poland. So shortly after that, some other European countries were then allowed to have more freedoms, or were pushing for more freedoms and to rebuild their economies. Now, communism, or the communist people, are also called atheists. Now, atheists are people who do not believe there is a God. They believe there is no God. Okay, so communists destroyed many churches in Russia. They killed church leaders, and they put Christians in jail for teaching their own children about the Bible. Now, there were still many Christians living in the Soviet Union at the time, but they ended up getting persecuted because they were following their practices of Christianity. Now, there were very few freedoms in Russia, okay? And that means things like they weren't allowed to travel outside of Russia. They had to get permission. Okay, they had to get permission to move apartments just to have a better place to live. And many times there was 2 and 3 families living in an apartment because the housing shortage was so small they couldn't get into their own place. There was a food shortage. There was items shortage of just basic items that they would want, and they just weren't available. And the government actually put prices on all the things that people were selling. They chose the pricing. Women had to work heavy labor. Children were taught communism early in life. They did stress to produce through the children to learn to be a scientist or a mathematician, but they also taught their kids that capitalism was evil, meaning making your own money as much as you can. They controlled the sports. And so many writers, many athletes, many musicians, artists, and other people just fled from Russia into states like the United States or other countries to get more freedoms. After World War II, the United Nations was formed, and they formed, this was an organization to promote peace among all the nations of the world. Now, as a member of the United Nations, you had to contribute money and give money for the expenses of keeping the peace. And the United States is one of the largest contributors to the United Nations. Not only do we contribute financially, but we also contribute by helping people in need when they go into wars with other countries by offering them help and protection from our military or with our military. Okay, so in 1991 in Russia, something really changed there. And so let me tell you what happened. At that time, Gorbachev was in control, and some communist leaders and military actually arrested him and kind of took control of the nation. And everybody was watching this, and so in Moscow, Boris Yeltsin was the newly elected president of the Russian Republic, ended up surrounding himself with tanks and military people, and they stormed over to the nation capital, basically, where Gorbachev was being held, and they stormed there trying to get them to release and get the people who were holding him to come down from trying to overthrow and take control of the nation to continue a stronger communist government. Stopping that overthrowment, and at that time then Yeltsin became the most powerful man in Russia, okay, because of that action that he took. So after that, the Republic of Russia became an independent nation and took over the Communist Party, and he ended up proclaiming a democratic free market system of government. He allowed religious freedoms. He brought and allowed the Eastern Orthodox Church back. He declared their independence of things, and a new flag was formed. Most of the independent republics agreed to join together in a loose organization called the Commonwealth of Independent States, and a lot of the few different countries around joined that. So that was the changing point of the country, allowing more freedoms to the people at that time. Okay, and so as you were watching this video, you should have been filling in your worksheet, quiz 32 it was, and at the bottom is a map. So go ahead and go back to page 269 to fill in that map, and you're done with history for today.